In Michigan, we have a lot of different coverages on our insurance policies, and one of them is the type of collision. You've heard about the personal injury and all the medical stuff that we have, and if not, I'll link a video at the end that'll explain that. But let's dive into the three types of collision that Michigan offers that no other state does. The first one is the limited collision. And what limited collision essentially does is if you have an accident and it's not your fault, it allows you to carry a deductible. So you put whatever deductible the company allows you to do, which most cases is $100, $250, $500, $1,000, and so on. If you have a not-at-fault claim, because we're a no-fault state, you go off and you pay your deductible. So in that limited collision step, you still pay your deductible. Now, in the scenario where you are at fault and you're the one that caused the accident, you're not covered at all. It is one of those coverages that they offer that gives you a lower cost in the premium, but of way higher risk if you are the one that causes the accident. The second type of collision that Michigan offers is what we call standard. On some insurance policies, you might see that coverage as regular collision or the standard collision like I mentioned. What that does is it's very similar to the other situation, but in this case, if you are at fault, you still have insurance coverage. So if you are in a covered incident, whether you're at fault or not at fault, it doesn't make a difference. You go off to your insurance again, and you pay whatever deductible you've chosen. I'll explain in a moment the benefit of that because almost half of the people that I personally work with choose that standard collision, sometimes even more than that. I'll go over it in here in just a moment because there's additional coverage that actually benefits you here. The last type of collision is called broad form. And that's just like the regular, except now if you're not at fault, you don't pay the deductible. That deductible is waived. So same scenario, at fault, not at fault, you go off to your company, and if it's at fault, you pay your deductible. If it's not at fault, you don't pay the deductible that you've chosen. Those are the main three pieces, and it's clear why most people don't pick the limited collision portion. It's something that's there if you have to afford some sort of type of collision where you want coverage, you just have to make sure that you're not the person that causes the accident. I get it. None of us plan to cause the accident. But in that scenario, if that's what you can afford, that's the part that is the cheapest. The reason most people pick the standard collision outside of the broad form collision is because there's another coverage that Michigan allows us to add to the policy, and it's called mini tort. It's also known as limited tort as another word. But what it basically does is allow you to actually go back to the other person's insurance and request that they pay for your damages. It's almost like a small claims court option, right? So it's a little bit of work on your end, but you can go back to that person's insurance, say, I had a $500 deductible, it wasn't my fault, so I want that paid. I had to rent a car, and it was $10 more a day than I thought it would be, and I want that paid for, and I had to go out to eat for the last 3 days because I didn't have my car ready, and I want that paid for. So what I incurred in losses was $15, $18, whatever the cost was, up to $3,000. $3,000 is the cap that you can have that mini tort up to. If you have a police report or everything's done correctly, in most cases it's clear-cut who was the person at fault. If that's the case, most of the time the insurance companies won't make you do much more than just let them know and give them a breakdown of what the costs that you incurred were. They'll typically just write a check and get that out of their way. They want it done and gone as quickly as possible so it doesn't tie their resources up. If they choose not to, that's where the state officially allows you to go after that insurance and say, I want this up to the $3,000. It's kind of like a small claims court option. There is a scenario where that isn't covered, and this is the one thing that you should be wary of when you're purchasing this. So if you do the regular collision and you do the mini tort with it, by the way, the mini tort is super inexpensive. In most cases, it's less or close to $1 a month. The one scenario that it's not covered is if it's a hit and run, because now there's nobody to go after. This is something that allows you to go to someone else's insurance, and if that person hits you and takes off, there's nowhere to go to file that claim back. If you feel like this is a risk that could happen, then in this scenario, to be best protected, you're going to want to have that broad form protection on your insurance policy. And those are the three main types of coverage: limited, standard, and broad form. If you do have other questions, definitely put them in the description below. If you are interested in learning more of the specifics about insurance, a little bit more in depth on the coverages that Michigan specifically offers, I'll put our Insurance 101 video there. We also have a video here that might be interesting to help you with our local area as far as the coverages and different pieces that Michigan allows. I'm Mark with Valor Insurance. I'll see you soon.